we go. 189, not bad. We're pressing 200, John. That's getting kind of impressive, actually. This has been going on for a little while now, and Jared leading the charge.
Absolutely. We won't hear from Jared today, however, because our video ninja sound effects, you'll hear fantastic futures, but you won't hear any other sound effects or dancing bulls and bears and snowboarding and all the rest of it.
We'll make up for it.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you guys tuning in and joining us today for the Rebel's Edge. It is the final Rebel's Edge for the week because we do them Monday through Thursday right now to give us a little travel time. And I'll be in Miami later today, Pete.
Nice. Be prepared for the heat, bro. You can't even walk on our beaches down here in Florida right now, man. I mean, it is, it's not only temperature hot, in the air, but the sand is on fire. So it's, I'm just warning you ahead of time. Be ready.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to dive right into the show. We start out with the macro minute, fantastic futures, our take on a bunch of stocks, some sports. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Macro minute, late cycle surge in hiring. That's what we got from the folks that tell us ahead of the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That, of course, is due tomorrow, Friday's jobs report. And a late cycle surge, markets didn't like that. And the treasuries went through 4%, Pete.
Well, and yesterday, John, we were just talking about that. We were saying that in April, it was 326, and then in May, it was 340. And then all of a sudden you get to June, it was 360. Now, July, here we are well over 4, and people are getting a little bit nervous. That 4 level is a trigger. It's happened before, it's happened again, and it's happening right now where we go over 4 and suddenly the markets are absolutely for sale. You take a look over at the S&P, down 1%, the Dow down 1% plus, the NASDAQ down 1% plus, across the board, some selling. So very, very active because of the fact of where those 10-year treasuries are sitting.
Well, and I bet I know what you're going to talk about in fantastic futures, Pete.
Fantastic futures.
There it is. The markets are seeing a 95% chance of a hike at the Fed's July meeting, which is exactly 20 days from now, Pete, the 26th of July. And that, according to the CME's Fed Watch tool, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. What do you got as far as futures, Pete?
I'm going to jump on your back and join you, John, because you know what? You look over at the CME, this is very accurate. This isn't just a bunch of guys sitting around a desk going, well, I think this is going to happen. This is based on the 30-day Fed funds and what they're seeing in those Fed fund futures. And what they're seeing is, well, it looks like a rate hike, right? 95%, I think you were saying. So that's something that is not like set in stone. You still got a little bit of wiggle room there, but I kind of feel like we know what's coming based upon the Fed and what they've been saying.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to see a lot of futures reacting aggressively to another hot number, Pete. And it'll take a lot to turn us from a 95% chance of a move on the 26th. I'll tell you that. All right, let's talk about AFRM. This is buy now, pay later. And what do you think the problems would be with that? Well, according to Piper Sandler, they said AFRM relies heavily on those loan sales for their revenue. In other words, somebody wants to buy something, they buy it now, pay it later. It's not a credit card, but nonetheless, that loan is packaged and then sold. And higher rates and wider credit spreads mean that's not so good for them, Pete.
Yeah, and John, they're in a position now. They were talking about the fact that they have to be holding these loans. That's not what they want to do. They are not getting any kind of margin at all at this point in time. So that's a big problem. I'll tell you who's actually winning during this. Those that have been short and betting on the short side of this from AFRM. We're talking about a stock that's basically been anywhere between $8, call it $41, and now trading a lot closer to maybe call it 13, John. So when you look at those shorts, and we talk about this every single day, it can work on the upside the squeeze. It can also work on the downside when they're right. Well, they've been more right than wrong when it comes to a firm and that push to the downside. The shorts, if they're on their A game, though, at some point you got to start maybe taking some of those back in, not to force a squeeze, but just to cover some of that and make a little bit of money off of it, just in case a squeeze comes later.
And it might be coming again, Pete, because I think a lot of these loans are just very unattractive. And if they can't sell them and they have to hold it, people are going to start marking down the stock even more. Remember, 52-week low on this stock is $8.62.
Yep.
So we could see that again. We're at 13 right now. All right. How about this one, Pete? Reintroduction of student debt payments is being blamed for both of these stocks moving to the downside. Upstart down 10% or more. It's the same dog, different color. But instead of a buy now, pay later, what they're really doing is these guys do an artificial intelligence or AI to figure out, oh, okay, we're a lending platform. Instead of having a bunch of loan officers, we'll do it with AI. Yeah, but when people don't want those higher interest rate loans, who exactly are these guys selling to, Pete?
Yeah, that becomes a problem. I will say this, though, John, from the standpoint of Unity and Upstart and some of these various names that are in the AI space, the fascination that people have, this name is a heck of a lot closer to where those 52-week highs have been and not far at all from where that is. It did pull back, but then it bounced okay. Despite the fact that the markets were still selling off, this thing got off of the lows and it's not trading as poorly as it did almost initially, John. Big short interest in this name, but it's not getting pushed quite the same way we're seeing something like Affirm, some of these other names. I think it's interesting. I think it's the AI fascination that people are still looking and saying, you know what, I'm going to take this thing on a discount. It's down 6, 7, 8% today. Maybe they're taking a little bit in. I think that's kind of what we're seeing there, at least right now. Doesn't mean it can happen for weeks on end, but for right now, it looks like they've kind of paused a little bit of that selling.
They have, but Pete, this one tripled. In other words, it was a $12 stock. It went through 36. That's a triple to you and me from where it was. I think it's got more room to the downside, Pete. So we'll see. Somebody's defending it today. We'll see if they have enough capital to defend it for much longer. All right. How about GENI? GENI. This is Genius Sports. They sell technology products to sports and sports betting. So what do, Pete? Well, the NFL has a strategic partner with these guys for exclusive official NFL data and watch and bet distribution partner. So that's pretty interesting. The stock's up 15% today. They agreed to a new multi-year extension, I guess, is the reason.
Yeah, and I think that multi-year extension is definitely the reason, John. When you look at it, they're going all the way to the 2027-28 season. That's how far out this is going. But official NFL data, and we know how popular, you and I talk about this on a daily basis when we get to the sports section, because we know how popular the NFL is. It absolutely dominates all other competition. And the only thing close, probably college football, right? I mean, that's the amazing part, is just the fascination that this particular country, we love our NFL, we love our college football. Football is king. Everything else is taking a back seat. This is a great partnership deal that they've got right now. This, by the way, traded, John, 7 times normal volume within the first 90 minutes. Gives you a little bit of an idea how aggressive people were coming in and just saying, you know what? I'll take some, and I'll keep on taking some. So these guys are media. They're in the betting world. They're in the services, all of that. And the NFL has basically said, you know what? You're doing a hell of a job. Let's extend this out. Pretty impressive day today we're seeing so far. New 52-week highs, even into a market that's been down 500 points today.
Yes, this is one, especially since it's like a $6 or a $7 stock now, Pete. $7, I guess, right now. It wasn't long ago that you could have been buying this one. In fact, let me see, the June 16th low, so not even a month ago, it was 550. Yeah. And here it is pushing through 7. If you make that a $55 stock to 70, you'd be even more impressed. But it's the same thing. The same thing. As far as the percentage moves. So I like it, Pete. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
All right. let's talk about Caribou Bioscience. It's up over 60% today. Clinical stage biopharma. What does that mean? What does Pete always talk about? Because he's our biopharma guy. Well, that means they've had enough money to go through various stage phase 1, phase 2 trials. And then, they either perhaps, Pete, will sell the drug that they're developing, or they'll sell the whole company. And today, a 60% jump. Pfizer takes a big stake. That's the reason for today's jump.
Yeah, they jumped on there big, John. They were very excited about this thing, $25 million. That's not a lot of money to a lot of people out there. But when you're talking about what they're trying to do and some of the phase 1, they talked about also, John, if they can get to phase 2, if they get pivotal information off of that even, they might accelerate this thing a lot faster just because of the need that this is. So pretty interesting because they've got a lot of early stage, phase 1 and even before that starting right now. So very exciting to see what's going on here. I think Pfizer just said, you know what, we're going to throw some money at it because 25 million, that's nothing for us. And it's huge for them. Gives them a great opportunity, John, to get a little bit further along, maybe a little bit quicker, and we'll see how things go. But always exciting whenever we're talking about anything in the biotech world. We know about the health and all the work that people are doing out there. This is a pretty cool sounding company, at least right now. And if they can get this stuff to market, this is going to be great for people. It's also going to be great for the stock price.
Yeah. Well, next target, Pete, has to be about $8, according to the charts I'm looking at. And this one in November of last year was up almost to $11. So it bled down pretty far. But now with this investment, Pete's exactly right, folks. 73 million share turnover today. It's up still 60% on the day, and normal turnover is 700,000. So we're not talking a 10x, we're talking 100x and a 15% short interest. That's pretty good combination.
Not so bad.
All right. I know you want to talk about Atlanta, Pete, one of our favorite cities, yours and mine, but I'm glad I'm not there this time of year, because those Atlanta folks can put up with heat and humidity a lot better than I can. I like the heat, not so much the humidity.
Well, and the other thing is water. At least in Florida, you got a shot at some water. If you're in Atlanta, man, that could get pretty swampy. But it is the home of Waffle House, another one of my all-time favorites. And a shout out to Walt, who had some health issues recently, but he's coming through it pretty well. John, the Atlanta Braves are a really interesting team because they haven't really gotten a lot of notoriety this year. I don't think people are talking about them, including myself. Been focused on Tampa, focused on some of those teams that are on the very low end of the pay scale and doing extremely well. Baltimore is another one. You and I were talking about that yesterday. But Atlanta right now is absolutely outstanding. They're sitting at the very top, and they've been moving in that direction, and they did finally pass up Tampa a few weeks ago. But what they're doing in every phase of the game, which is the impressive part. They're doing it at home. They're 30-15. They're doing it on the road. They're 28-13. And John, they're doing it from the pitching side of things and the batting side. So when you take a look at the roster that they've got, now these guys do have a better payroll. They're in the top 10, the lower part of the top 10. But nonetheless, they are getting their money's worth out of this, John, because when you take a look, you've got 3 starting pitchers right now with an ERA under 366. That's pretty daggone impressive. Then you look at Acuna, Albies, and Olsen, all of which have 20 or more home runs been hit. When you look at all the different stats that Atlanta's put up so far, whether it's home runs, whether it's RBIs, whether it's the pitching side of things, they are somewhere in that top group. So this is not just a team like the Minnesota Twins, who I love to death, but they got great pitching. They can't hit the ball, John. They can't hit the ball out of the park, and that's a problem. So their pitching keeps them in games, but the reason they're a 500 team, not a 674 team, is because they don't have those bats. Well, Atlanta's got it all right now. I think between Atlanta, maybe throw in Tampa, Baltimore, of course, and I don't know, a sprinkling of some of those others up there in the AL East or whatever. I think at some point we'll see a little bit more from the Yankees, but right now, there are some teams out there, throw in Texas. There's about 4 or 5 teams that are playing unbelievable baseball at a level right now that we haven't seen in a while at the halfway point. And the Braves are number 1 in just about every category. Pretty impressive.
Yep. Well, Pete, he's been Chipper Jones, that is, has been a hitting coach down there. And there's few people better to do that than Chipper, who is, a Hall of Famer. I think overall that there are rumors, Pete, as you know, that Ohante, I can't ever do that. But anyway, he is Ohani. He is considering that team, Atlanta, as a potential spot if indeed, the free agency route is how he goes. I think that if they had that, both his bat and his arm pitching down there, they're an almost unstoppable force based on what you said and what we've been seeing on the field. So we'll see what happens there. It'd be a damn shame if the Angels can't hold on to him, though.
Yeah, I don't know how they can't, John. I mean, I think that they've got it. They don't have a very high pay, they've got a lot of the things that they need already, and how you could give up on this guy when you're sitting there looking at somebody who's literally got historic numbers. It's unbelievable. All right, next we're going to jump over, John. I thought this was pretty fun because as we were talking yesterday, we talked about NFL camps are not that far away. And obviously that means preseason. It means all those things. And the excitement of the NFL suddenly returns. So I wanted to take a look at this because I was even a little bit surprised, to some degree anyway, with what the colleges are that are really feeding into the NFL right now. And so here's what I've got for you. On the 53-man roster in the last 3 years, here's the top 5 teams, John. You've got Bama in 2020, Bama again in 2021, Bama again in 2022. They had the most players on NFL rosters in the first week. Now, that's probably not shocking, but you'd expect, all right, well, it's got to be Georgia next, right? I mean, Georgia's been everywhere. Nope. So Ohio State, and LSU, followed by LSU, Ohio State, followed by Florida, then Georgia and Georgia. But it's interesting to see some of what we're seeing there. Georgia, Notre Dame, Oklahoma kind of finishing out. Do you know that the one that surprised me a little bit, and maybe it shouldn't have because I see it in the NFL all the time, but how about the fact that Iowa is just kind of hanging around there, John, in that upper echelon of players going into the NFL? Would you have thought that? Because I would have said, well, it's probably Michigan or USC or UCLA or whoever. It's Iowa. And you and I both know they've got some great tight ends and some linemen and stuff. But are you a little bit shocked that Iowa's somewhere in that top 6 or 8 in terms of colleges with guys playing in the NFL?
Well, like you say, in terms of guys playing, yeah, I would be, because, we know people like, gosh, who's the tight end again, Pete, with San Francisco? He's an Iowa kid.
Yep.
And, great player. They had that linebacker this year that you loved, who's going to be an impact player. Yep. But the ones that I was most surprised, LSU, Pete, 71 active players in the league. That's as of course, last year, because we haven't started this year yet.
Right.
But as of last year, 71. You know what their earnings were last year? $1 billion. Because I looked it up this way. You and I always follow the money. So Bama has 86 players, 1.1 billion in salaries. Ohio State, 1.05 billion. California, number four, Pete, not with the number of players, only 24, but because of some of the monster contracts that quarterbacks get, Jared Goff and of course Aaron Rodgers, they are $800 million. So you're talking about, a school that most people in that school can't name more than one player on the football field because they're spending all their time in the library. But they've got so many, 24 players, obviously starting players, that are making a huge bank. Georgia, 62 players. So 3 times as many players, they make less money, 774 million. Now, we all know that when some of these new contracts that are so big come up, which some of them start paying this year, some of them were last year and so forth, you're seeing guys sign for 300 mil and things like that. Mainly quarterbacks, however. You know, if a D lineman gets like 90 mil and 50 of it is guaranteed, great, but they don't get the quarterback money. That's California. Those are the Golden Bears, my friend.
It is amazing. I mean, when you look at some of those numbers, John, and of course, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that's a big number. So you get some guys like that, it's definitely going to move that needle a little bit further. But it is amazing when you look across and you see some of the schools that just absolutely have this pipeline into the NFL. I think in Iowa's case, I think part of what they're doing is it's a lot of offensive linemen, some defensive linemen. They've done incredibly well with their tight ends over the years. Never quarterbacks. I mean, you could go back to maybe Chuck Long, but then tell me a quarterback in the NFL from Iowa. But, you know, it just shows you that they're really well coached. And those teams that are coached well, when those guys get to the next level, they seem to ascend to another level. And it's really pretty impressive. But a lot of fun, and the NFL is not far away, John.
No. Well, and just one quick more thing, Pete, and that is, you know, with Bama, some of these players, the salaries are outrageous. I mean, Amari Cooper has earned past tense so far in his career, Pete, $96 million. And now he's playing in Cleveland for a 5-year, $100 million contract. I looked down through the list. Derrick Henry, he's got a 4-year, $50 million contract, and he's made 45 mil so far. That guy is underpaid. Yeah. I mean, you know, I know he got banged up pretty bad last season, but that guy is vastly underpaid. Nobody can stop him. No. When he's healthy, he runs through people. But, you know, Amari Cooper pulling down big cash for having a couple pretty good seasons, more than pretty good. But man, that's some huge. And how about this? Tua, Pete, he has a 4-year, $30 million contract because, you know, he's still so young. What do you think his next contract's going to be? Put another 0 at the end of that. 300 mil. So look for the Bama guys to jump up a lot with these next contracts they sign.
It's unbelievable. It's impressive. It really is. I'm excited for the NFL already, John.
I am too, Pete. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. We don't do the Rebel Edge on Fridays, but we do Bulls, Bears, and Blockchain. I think Pete's going to jump on there tonight. Yep. For those of you who didn't know already, that's a Twitter space. So for instance, I'll just show you how that works. If you have Twitter on your phone, folks, that little button right there in the middle, that is a microphone. And if you press that, you'll see all the Twitter spaces that are going on. We have either the number 1 or number 2 Twitter space in North America, averaging over 155,000 live listens. So make sure you tune in tonight, 5:30 Eastern time. Mark Lepresti, Alex Macioli, Pete Najarian, because I'll be up in the air, and Rob Nelson hosting the whole thing. Bulls, Bears, Blockchain, or B3. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, no, we'll see you Monday next week, folks. Thank you.